Lake Forest Podcast is supported by viewers, listeners, and businesses just like you. Looking for the best pool supplies? Look no further than Dohany's Pool Supplies. With a history dating back to 1967, this family-owned business offers everything families need to keep their pools clean and sparkling, from chemicals to equipment. Plus, customers enjoy free shipping on all orders. Visit Dohany's Pool Supplies today at doheny.com, DOHENY.com, to learn more. Forest Bluff Real Estate Team serves Illinois, Wisconsin, Lake Forest, and Lake Bluff. John Josephitis, Laura Lee Van Fleet, and of course, Michelle Parnell. Get a free market analysis now at forestbluffrealestate.com. For the best cannabis in the world, look no further than Iliad Epic Grow. Owned by Lake Bluff's own Rich Ruzich, they are a cannabis cultivation center focusing on hard-to-find small batch products that will delight both the occasional user and ganjier. When visiting Michigan, ask for it by name. Epic Products, exceptional process. For more information, email info@iliadgrow.com. Havey Communications has been helping first responders arrive safely since 1983. It's owned by Lake Forest's own Mike Havey. Check them out at haveycommunications.com. We'd also like to say we're thankful for our Patreon supporters: Costa, Lance, Otto, RDM, John C., and Helen. Shout out to the Lake Forest Breakfast Group, Broad Stop and Captain Mike's in Kenosha, the Greentown Tavern, and the Frolic Lounge in Waukegan. Jeff Brincat, how you doing, my friend?
Hey, Peter, how are you doing, buddy? Happy summer.
Happy summer. Happy summer. Hey, school's out, but parents' care is not.
No, we're managing to continue to fight the good fight. It's certainly what I think is a good fight.
Is that a Marine Corps tattoo on your arm there?
It is. Got a big bulldog on the shoulder here too. You know.
Semper Fi.
Yep. Yes, sir.
You should wear, I don't want to say the tank top. You should wear the tank top when you come on the show.
I think we're seeing enough, Jeff, right now.
I have you can see the farmer tan is alive and well in my neck of the woods. So, maybe Pete, that'll be my motivation for the next show if I can get all that done,
Philippe?
Too much Jeff Brincat there. Stick to the short sleeve shirt, bud.
Philippe Navidad. What up, Philippe?
How you guys doing?
Hey, Philippe.
Good morning, Philippe.
Iliad, nice.
You like that?
Showing
Supporting a local business owner. Or so he doesn't own a business here. He owns it in Michigan, right?
Michigan, yeah.
He's
Richard Ruzich is a unique dude for sure. Guy's great.
That's Rich Ruzich, of course. Rich Ruzich. Philippe, we haven't seen you for a while. How you been, my brother?
I'm good. I'm checking in from Wheeling, Illinois. I ducked into a Westin hotel to join you guys this morning.
Oh, nice. Love that Westin.
Yeah,
that's the story. Philippe, that's the story you're sticking with, right? I'm just here in the hotel, just
This is what happens when you leave your socks on the floor.
Be sure to grab the complimentary breakfast.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, plenty of coffee.
So Philippe and Joseph, are you guys all made up now from
there was nothing to make up. I
sent
something, he texted the correction, and I corrected it on the next show. We're all good. Right. I've known Philippe for many years when he worked for Congressman Dold, and I'm cool.
Somebody made the suggestion, Joe, that there should be a drinking game that every time Niles Township comes up, that takes a drink.
How about Morton Grove? That'd be 2 drinks, right?
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that one. 219.
Yeah. That little community is getting more airplay on this show than it does in Morton Grove.
That's right. Go.
No, I was going to say, Philippe, do you want to show off any tattoos before we get going or anything? Or now just because we're,
I can't show my tattoos on this show. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You got like My Little Pony?
That's right.
Unicorn?
It's a unicorn, yeah. That's from our mailer.
For the record, I have 0 tattoos. And I don't want to know what Pete has. I really don't.
The only tattoos I get is just like Philippe when I leave the socks on the floor. Get a tattoo about right there.
Right.
So boys, what do we owe this pleasure? Parents Care. This is the Lake Forest Podcast Schools Edition, brought to you by Parents Care, Lake Bluff, Lake Forest, with Jeffrey Brincat and Philippe Melin. Thank you, boys, for coming on the show. What's going on?
Thanks for having us, Pete. Like you were saying, the school may technically be out, but we're certainly not out. We've been hammering away at the issues that, again, are the core pillars of our organization. That's student achievement, fiscal responsibility, and transparency. And I think we have some updates that Philippe can very aptly address that are apropos for every one of those concerns.
Yeah.
Now, is this the updates from the last school board meeting? Because I believe that's where our guy Montgomery put his hard hat on and said, "Okay, this is the in the weed stuff." Is that what we're getting into? This is other stuff.
Well, I would argue that the things that are really pertinent now are really extensions of what has been pertinent. What has been a big issue, and again, addressing what Pete, I think, in maybe your more calmer moments, you would refer to as a misdirection by the superintendent, by the administration, arguably by the school board.
Screwed over, yeah.
Well, okay,
I said it. You didn't.
I was trying to look. You're a wordsmith, clearly, right? So, but we have, we've continued to, beat on this drum about student achievement, and we look at all of these issues juxtaposed against the lack of achievement, the continued disappointing scores. And again, we don't, we're not berating on where we are, but we continue to ask. And I mean, at this point, I would even say plead for defined metrics, what the school board 67-115 in terms of what do they want to see in terms of state standardized testing. We know what the spending is. We know they can get behind a massive bond program. We know they have no problem unveiling these massive capital projects at the administrative headquarters. They have no problem sinking millions in this summer on, principally 3 major directions over there. We know they have no problem, asking the community for $100+ million bonds. We ask, well, why is this such a hang up to define what student achievement is going to look like in light of at the high school, 4 out of 10 kids not being on grade level. So, Philippe can put it much better than I can really on some of these things.
Better, but maybe I could just provide a little context. So, I don't know if any of your listeners have been driving down Waukegan Road by the administration campus off Waukegan Road there. And I was there the other day, and I noticed that like a massive roofing projects going on over there. And I also noticed that they're doing a massive redoing of like almost the entire parking lot driving system over there on that West campus. It's not just like a surfacing project. Like they're digging out the road. They're building 19 new parking spots right by the administrator's front door. There's things. So we went and took a look at it. They're spending about $4 million on that roof, almost $1.8 million. Maybe it's hard to know exactly, between $700,000 and $1 million on the parking surfacing over there. And, my first reaction is like, man, this is massive amount of money and effort going into a building that has very little to do with our kids' educations. They don't go to there. The only reason they go to those West campus is really for athletic purposes. No improvements to the athletic facilities, by the way, but so at first I'm like, wow, this is a big project, but now they're spending a lot of money. And I started talking to different people. We have a lot of people who reach out to us, all the time when people have some questions or thoughts about the school, they reach out to us and we talk with them. And, I was talking with one gentleman in town, and I said, what do you think about like all that stuff after he drove by there? And he's like, the way I look at it is that I look at that spending, I don't really care, if they're going to spend $4 million on a roof or $1 million on a reparking the admin parking lot, as long as the school's performing, and it really that helped me kind of see this into context. It's not so much the spend, it's really that they're spending this when we should be in a situation where I think the education should be the only thing that they're thinking about. It should be code red time over at these schools. My son is at 9th grade, just finished his freshman year, but so we're looking at his class's score. I think it was like 23 or 25% of the kids were proficient in English coming out of Deer Path Middle School. It's even worse over at Deer Path or at Lake Bluff Middle School. And these guys, in my mind, are sort of whistling past potential graveyard. Like, we've got some serious issues. And what are the causes? Could it be COVID? Could it be technology? Could it be declining standards? There's a lot of things that may be going in, but I don't see these guys putting in the time or the effort or the elegance behind improving the academic performance of their schools and ensuring that our kids, I got 2 kids, I'm not planning on having any more. This is the only 2 I've got. I want my school administrators and leaders focusing on their job and not focusing on parking lots at the admin building that have very little to do with my kids' education. And so I think, and we've been talking about this at Parents Care, we are very concerned that there's a misallocation of priorities by these things. They use bureaucratic things. They have like their master plans and they talk all about this sort of stuff. And here's one more piece of context and I'll stop talking. It's elaborating what Jeff was talking about. Okay. The Superintendent Montgomery several months ago said, this is something that we called up from the very first beginning of Parents Care. So we need to know what academic success looks like. How are we supposed to hold the board and the admin, the teachers accountable for educating our kids if we don't even know what the success looks like? Lake Bluff School District, in response to our mailer, said, hey, the IAR tests aren't the ones that we look at. We look at other things. So then we FOIA'd them and say, well, what do you look at? And they're like, well, we can't show that to you. It's like whack-a-mole trying to figure out what success looks like. And Superintendent Montgomery, when he got his massive pay increase this year, part of his contract was he's going to come up with metrics for success. Like, I don't know who gives a guy a raise before, to come up with the metrics. Usually you say, set the metrics and then we'll give you hit them and then you hit the raise, but neither here nor there. My point is that we're waiting and waiting and waiting. We've kind of pulled off the academic stuff at Parents Care because we said, hey, listen, these guys are talking about producing the metrics. I don't know what's going on. We cannot seem to get the metrics. We don't know what success looks like. So we're not even in a position to where we can begin to hold these people accountable for success or failure because they're not telling us what success is. I'm not an education professional. I don't know what success should look like. So it's their job to show what success looks like. And I think, and we're going to call this week, Parents Care is going to make a call, no more spending on admins, no more spending on admin buildings, no more spending on additional admin parking lots so these guys can walk, 100 feet closer to their building. No more spending on administration until you show us what's in what's in Montgomery's contract and what he promised to us is successful metrics so that we have a metric by which we can hold our kids' educators accountable for success or failure. And it's not just failure. Show the thing. So if they use success, we can herald you and congratulate you, or we can move on from you if you're not hitting success. But you got to show us what success looks like. And no more spending our dollars, our taxpayer dollars, on irrelevant things to education like parking lots. So anyway, sorry to go on a rant, but that's kind of like why I wanted to be on the show today, because I feel very strongly about this issue.
Joe, you've been on school boards. Now we'll turn off the drinking game. Now I know you're in your 20s, going through this stuff, and I'm in my 50s going through this stuff, trying to make heads or tail of this, because the only news that I believe is the information I get back from a FOIA request. Okay. And the FOIA request, it's almost like you're dealing with ChatGPT. You have to whittle down, be a prompt engineer to ask the right question, because they'll come back with, sorry, no records found. Okay. They'll go into Boolean searches, either or, and pull all that crap on to delay the information, coming back. There should be a simpler way to get that information. But Joe, you being on the school board, what are the things that are going down when these kind of things should be budgeted in as standard maintenance and it turns into a referendum? What have you seen in the past?
A good point there that you just said, standard maintenance. So one of the things I noticed, again, totally different district, 30 years ago, almost now. But a lot of times, and I've touched on this before, where you have schools are loaded with people that are educators, which is an important job, but they often lose sight of some of the other business aspects of it, which includes maintaining a building. So you will see tons of money being spent on, new things, new science labs, new programs, things like that. And then I remember touring the building once, and one of my colleagues was a property owner, like a real estate investor, and dealt with property management on a day-to-day basis in his job. And he'd see my little things that weren't being taken care of. And he's like, look, you guys spend millions of dollars on all this new stuff, but you don't take care of the stuff you have. And so, I can't speak to the specifics of, parking lots sooner or later do need to get resurfaced. I don't know what the condition was of the lot.
Not resurfacing, Joe. This is resurfacing. I understand. This is complete uprooting of the entire road, right. Building 19 new unnecessary parking spots right by the administrator door. The seats are never full except for football games, and they park on the grass anyway. That's my point. This should be, in my opinion, maybe spend $150,000 on resurfacing, or Jeff may have a better perspective on how much, not $800,000 on a completely new redo with 19 new spots, new lighting, all sorts of stuff.
Is this coming out of the money from the referendum that just passed?
Nope, this was appropriated from a $15 million referendum or bond that they issued late last year that nobody ever talked about, but they borrowed, I think it was 15.
Well, either way, we're paying for it, right?
Yeah, and they also they plan to spend another, I think, $12 million on that West campus from bond referendums moving forward.
Do they hold any, forgive me that I don't know this, I wish Stu was on because he would know it, but do they hold, I know I've been to football games there, and I know they had some other athletics. I believe they have a theater thing there as well. Is there anything during the day with students, like an off-campus
they have
thing or special ed or things?
I forget what the program is called, but they have 18-year-old plus, maybe 18 to 25-year-old kids with disabilities over at that campus.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And then
so there is some use, but again, I think there needs to be more clarity from the district, from the board. I wish someone, either an elected school board member or the superintendent, would come on and clarify, because there's some things here we're just not getting.
Jeff, what are we doing? Pete, from the district, directly from the district, this is the administrator's parking lot. This isn't, visitors park there too, but, we've all seen the district tout the fact that there's only 38 or 39 administrators. Why would you put $800,000 into a parking lot for this nominal amount of people? And like to Philippe's point, the approaches from Waukegan Road that were dug up, it's all the approaches along the building. It's the curbing, new lighting. And again, this isn't some minor scarification that results in a 1-inch topping of blacktop. This is dug up down to the gravel, put in. You only need to go there and see this is major construction. And my point is, so we've all heard these kind of like swan song claims about that this administrative headquarters, this is a good sound investment. We derive rent from the Citadel Theater, we get rent from the Early Learning Center, like Little Scouts, I think it's called Little Scouts. But to any fair-minded observer, you have to say, okay, a $4 point some million roof, $800,000 administrative parking lot, upgrades the HVAC system, and you only need to look at their own publicity about the recent $105.8 million bond, $106 million bond, to see that there's a footnote that 10% of that money is going to be spent on the admin center. So how anybody could rationalize $15 or $16 million going in to a headquarters building when, by their own incantations, I mean, we need this massive spending to keep the kids from sitting in pools of water at the high school. It's kind of a Rubik's Cube of trying to rationalize, well, wait a minute, hold on. But that was from this bond, and we voted on this then, and we did this. Look, these, we go to school board meetings. We've gone to the admin building to look at budgets. We've seen the parking lot. This is not, these are not priorities.
I have a point here that, and Rick Lesser and I have touched on this in previous shows about the proliferation of local government units in Illinois. Sure. I'm going to give you guys a really scary stat that I learned back when I was on the school board, that 1 out of every 10 school districts in the United States is in the state of Illinois. Now think about that. Think about that. That's crazy. So when we talk about administrative costs and administrative buildings like this one, there is so much money being spent, not just Lake Forest, but across the state. I mean, when I was guys, when I was on the Niles Township 219 High School Board, we had 9 elementary districts feeding into a 2 high school district. So in other words, there were school districts with literally 1 school. We had the district that I grew up in and graduated from was District 73 and a half, which was created years ago when the railroad that later became the Skokie-Swift Yellow Line was built, that the parents on one side didn't want their kids going to school on the other. So they created the 73, got split into 2 districts, 73 and 73 and a half. I mean, it's crazy. The amount of money that's spent across Illinois on administrative costs for schools compared to what goes on in other states. And I get it that local control is important. I don't want bureaucrats in Springfield or Chicago dictating how our neighborhood schools are run.
I think people need to look at it. Hey, Joe, that parking lot, that's $800,000. To me, that's $100 out of my pocket. I don't know how to look at it, but $100, I know what I can do at $100. I paid $100, so the guy that screwed us over can walk a little bit closer to his front door. Is that how I should be looking at it, or is there some other way?
No, I don't think you should be looking at that. Hey, Joe, can I jump in? Yeah. I don't think you should be looking at that because it's not about the $100. It's about the leadership of the school district. Okay, they should be focusing on academic achievement. Our kids are performing at all-time lows. If 23% of 8th graders at Deer Path are performing below grade level proficiency, doesn't wake you up, I don't know what's wrong with you. Okay.
And what are they doing about the metrics?
And listen, they're not doing it. They're doing, we think that they say they should set metrics of success to articulate, but they're not doing it. So I think you should look at it in that way. I think you should also look at it is that what's more important, the admin building or the education campuses where we send our kids to. We all remember the pictures during the bond campaign, the school district put about how dire and horrible, with buckets, water and horrific scenes out of a horror movie.
Food,
oh, you remember how horrible it was? It was like, oh my God.
Please help me. I'm Matt Montgomery.
So they needed that bond passed, yet they had enough money to spend on I would say like a Cadillac project on a parking lot. It's like there's a priority. What we should be looking at not is the $100. What we should look at is who's in charge of making the decisions at this school district. Here's another one for you, you guys. We've been speaking with a lot of parents. Okay, there are kids who are in wheelchairs at Deer Path Middle School and at I think it's Cherokee. Okay, these kids, these campuses are not adequately accommodated for these children. And we've seen people speak at school board meetings. There's not an electric door. If there was a thing out in the cafeteria at Deer Path, there's not a way for a kid in a wheelchair to get out safely if something were to happen. Bathrooms.
Whoa. Hold on, Philippe. You're telling me that Superintendent Montgomery is getting a closer walk to his door, an easier route than the handicapped kids?
That's exactly what I'm telling you.
Put it, Pete. Pete, that's a great way to put it.
That's exactly what I'm telling you. And we went back to, there's a FOIA. They post all their FOIAs. We found a FOIA on there from some document back in 2018 where they're talking about ADA compliance at the District 67. They had priority 1 and priority 2. These are things that help kids with disabilities go to school with dignity at this school, right? They were going to get around to priority 2 things in 2025. All right. Now we're trying to figure out how to get the information from these guys because they don't give any information out. But we don't want to see if like a lot of these things that they knew that they needed to do and were scheduled in 25 have been done, because it seems to me it would be a priority to make Deer Path Middle School a school where kids with disabilities can go with dignity before you give Montgomery and his administration team a closer walk to the front door. So it's not about $100. It's about priorities. It's about
They're carrying
priorities.
Montgomery in on a throne.
And they're paying out of the same fund, because I know in school districts they have, a building fund, an education fund, and it's my understanding that those funds were created under state law like 100 years ago because buildings were falling apart. So they said you got to set aside a certain amount for a building fund to make sure the school building is safe. Do you guys know which fund the referendum went to and which fund this thing came out? Because there are some limitations, I believe, on how much you can transfer between the funds.
I'm not
Who
sure
knows,
exactly.
but the freaking the poor handicapped people, or what do you say? What's the right word?
Persons with disabilities.
Disabilities can't get to the freaking front door. But Montgomery,
at one of the campuses, they have to have a teacher's aide who they're looking to cut, but some of these positions, by the way, at 67, take a kid with a wheelchair, I understand, from outside, including in the wintertime, in order to get adequately through the campus. There's serious issues there. And, I feel fortunate that I don't have a child with a physical disability, but I don't think parents who do in our community should have to go beg over and over again, break their heart to try to get some attention from the school district administration. But that's exactly what's happening at our school districts. And meanwhile, so I'm sorry, I get pissed off when I go down Waukegan Road and I see a Cadillac resurfacing project and 19 new unnecessary spots for admins, when parents in our community are frustrated, pulling their hair out, trying to advocate for their kids in a wheelchair. It's just not right. I'm sorry.
Bad optics, that's for sure. Bad optics for sure. Do we know, so Philippe, let's say they didn't do these projects at the admin building, but they did do some of the stuff that that you guys are talking about, like making sure that there is a proper access for students with disabilities. Would that be a wash in terms of funds, or would the district still be, or would there be savings to the districts? I'm just curious, as a taxpayer, are my taxes too high?
You know what I wish, Joe, that they would come on and explain it to you.
Yeah.
Because they don't really talk to us. So we don't know. All we see is we're dads. Jeff Brincat's a father of 6 kids. I'm a father of 2 kids. We're just dads who love our children. And we hear from a lot of parents in town who love their children, and they think that they're sending their kids to Lake Forest and Lake Bluff. They shouldn't have to worry about it. We're here to say you have to worry about it, parents. These guys are not making the right decisions, and they don't come in and talk to you unless they need the bond money. There's a problem. There's a problem. What is it? The cheese smells funny in Denmark or something like that. There's a problem. And unless parents step up and start getting more involved, and whether joining parents' care or getting involved in some other group or whatever, or having private meetings with the school board meetings, if you see something that doesn't look right or thing, you got to speak up, because we can't just close our eyes and pretend that we're living in Lake Forest and Lake Bluff, everything's fine. It's not.
Philippe, the problem is, look, I don't have any kids in the school district. Okay, so that's $100. All right, I don't know how many voters in town have kids going to the school district. Whatever it is, you have to relate it to something that $100 is going out of my pocket to make Montgomery's life easier, in addition to his 20% raise that I'm not even factoring in. And then you got somebody with a wheelchair waiting for somebody to open up the door. That's inexcusable. So I'll play the FOIA game on that with you people. That'll be, quite interesting. Putting all that stuff to the side, guys, the metrics, I heard metrics coming up in that last school board meeting. How long is it going to take, do you think, to come up with, an objective list of, hey, this is how we know we're doing a good job? And
I don't plan on holding my breath.
Okay, then what should it be? Let's make up our own.
Pete, let me bifurcate an answer to you in a couple different ways.
Bifurcate.
Mean split up. Okay. The one, look, but here's the thing. What really gave birth to our group is the fact that when the scores came out and they were lowest on record in the history of these school districts, they spent an ungodly amount of time, money, and attention on telling us how great things were. We were exceptionally rated in the state of Illinois. I mean, so number one, they set the stage year over year over year for, like, I think you said one time, it's raining out. They're peeing on our legs, but they're trying to tell us it's raining.
Yeah, I did say that. Yes.
So, there you go. But the
Another
second
thumbnail.
the second thing is, but to actually answer your question, for 10 months, we've been begging, tell us what success looks like what Philippe just said. We said, look, here's where we are now. What's the plan? Let's talk about improvement. In fact, we did a mailer about that to say, can we do this after 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, 48 months? We've got time to do all these other things. And again, it goes back to the same thing. It's about priorities. It's about what's important to these people, because it's not student achievement. Because in the wake of the lowest scores ever on record, they went on a publicity campaign telling us how great things were. It's certainly not fiscal responsibility, because we know what the spending is. We know what student populations are doing. We know what admin counts are doing. And it's certainly not transparency. And that's, again, those are the three reasons we're here, because we see these deficiencies. And I'll throw something else about school districts really quickly. Half the school districts in Illinois have 1 or 2 schools. Okay, so when you take of all the school districts in Illinois, they have 1 or 2 schools. Well, we see that in 115. We have a whole separate district for 1 school. Okay, if you take the administrative spending in absolute flat dollars in Illinois, it's higher than the other 49 states. So of all 50 jurisdictions in the United States, our flat dollar amount spent on administration is higher than all of them. It's over 5 times per student what they're spending within the state of Florida. If it's obnoxious. We spend more money in administration than California does with over two times the amount of kids, almost 3 times the amount of kids in grades K through 12. It's something that's it's baked into our system now. We have these, I call them the gang that spends first and asks questions later. Everything has a monetary answer, and it's almost like what we see with these districts, and frankly with some of these boards, and we've looked at a lot of them, is they seem to get some kind of gratification out of equating spending and project management and let's call it trappings of education with actual education achievement. Right? Because we know and that's why we're not picking any fights with the teachers, but we do want to hold these administrators accountable, and more than anything else, we want to hold these boards accountable. These people are elected to represent the interests of the community, and when we read community, we of course talk about students.
This is me saying it. We're in a democratic state. This is unfortunately what we have to deal with. But I hate pointing fingers without coming up with some type of solution. If we were to survey the parents, like if Parents Care and our podcast would send out a survey and just say, what are the top 3 things that you care about to know that your kid's in an objectively good place? Not that he feels good, but ranking nationally in reading and math, or what would it? Like, what would you put on this survey is what I'm asking.
Let me say this. The last community survey data that I looked at, 86% of Lake Forest and Lake Bluff residents thought they weren't getting their money's worth out of their contributions towards the local school districts. So when you look at that tax bill and you see the funding that goes in these districts.
Oh, we're beating the funding, Jeff, like with a baseball bat. I get it, Al Capone style. What I'm saying is, to the parents who are and the taxpayers, how do you look? Montgomery ain't never going to say nothing. He's going to probably put up a nice patio out there with some nice patio furniture and maybe a bar and grill for himself out there.
A green egg, yeah.
What can we ask the parents that'll say, hey, how do you know your kid's getting a good education? What are the metrics you're going to look at? Because these guys are never going to respond to us.
I'm not an educator,
That's their
parent. That's their job. We're the shareholders. We have hired a board and a management team to manage this district.
Okay, they suck. Right? We're our board. What?
We as shareholders, we don't. I don't know what success looks like. I'm not equipped to do it. That's what we're paying those guys to do. That's what we elected those guys to do.
Yeah, so but we're pointing out.
You're asking us to do something that we're not qualified to do. They're the ones who are qualified to do. We as shareholders are demanding management duties by setting. This is like any business. You got to set your goals. They've got to set the goals. So
hold on, Philippe, my brother. When you guys are pointing the finger, doing your marketing, you're saying we're in the lowest whatever. You're insinuating that's not good, right? So if that's not good, obviously that's important to you, that should be an objective thing that you would put up on a survey.
If I were to set metrics, it would be irrelevant. It's not my job to set metrics. It's their job to set metrics. They're not doing it. So the solution is for them to tell us what success looks like. I don't know. I don't know.
You can wish in one hand and crap in the other. See which one fills up first. We can wait forever, or we can say, look, since you won't come up with metrics, we will. Jeff, what would you put up there?
Pete, I would tell you that I would go back to prior periods, looking at student performance on standardized tests. I would go back to certain college acceptance trends that we've seen in the past for purposes of District 115. But I would, again, these are, there's so many subjective measures. These are the few objective measures that we can go back to: standardized tests, college acceptance, and I would evaluate at this in that sense. But I would also look at, again, it's a soft word, but it's a powerful word, and that's leadership. When you set the tone that you're going to make students the priority, you clearly specify that, you say it out loud, you make sure everybody understands that, you evaluate every decision against that. And that's what I think I would submit. That's why an $800,000 parking lot for administrators doesn't really pass the smell test. It's just, how do we have time to do that? And we have time to be talking about, portrait of a learner for years now. And what does it mean? I'm not saying these are not laudable objectives, but where do they rank in terms of priority of getting our kids on level? This has been a 12, well, now probably 13-year slide that we've got to address. And just giving this happy tune doesn't work. But I would offer to you, kind of like we started out with, that there's a Rubik's Cube, whack-a-mole aspect to all of this, where the school district is not serving the community. That's what I would tell you. And I would tell you, literally, the school board has not done what they need to do. These are elected positions. We have to hold them to a higher standard.
To get these people to come out with metrics, we have to come out with our own so they can say those metrics are whacked. Joe, what would the metrics that you would use to come up with their own survey, to come up with their own? We'll be Melissa Oakley, and we'll be the marketing piece for the other side. How do you know the schools are doing good?
Well, I was going to ask Jeff and Philippe what their take is, because I have mixed feelings on standardized testing. So on the one hand, I get it that you really need to measure people's performance, especially when there's tax dollars. It's important to see how people are doing. Of course, we don't pay based on that. We simply pay based on seniority and whatever degree you have, which degrees are important. I get that, and seniority does help, but we don't pay anybody based upon performance in public education. But the other part of me, again, I don't want bureaucrats in Springfield or Washington, D.C. deciding what is important to be taught in Lake Forest or any other community. So I don't know what your guys' take is on that, but I've always had a little skeptical eye on the standardized testing, and I tend to look more at things like what are kids doing after they graduate? And again, going to college isn't the right answer for every student. Some needs it, but what's the success rate 10 years from now of a graduate of Lake Forest?
All right,
in terms of their career?
Either.
No, I did answer the question. Because I'm not sure. I want to know what the standard should be, because I don't necessarily think it's how did we score compared to New Trier. Okay. Do we really want Lake Forest to be New Trier? I'm not so sure about that.
All right, guys, you're forcing me to go on a tangent. You're forcing me to go on a tangent now. Okay, standardized tests. Okay. Knowledge is not centralized anymore. It's decentralized. Okay. If you want a Harvard education, go on YouTube, find a professor and learn from it. Okay. What is important is that you can prove that you have the knowledge. So all these schools and colleges are so good for socialization skills. You know what's good for socialization skills? Get an effing job. Okay. Do something, get the knowledge. Institutions should be an administration building filled with proctors with some type of way of proving that you have the knowledge. If If you want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, whatever, you go and you take a test, right? Yes. Okay. So get the knowledge however you want. Get the socialization skills. Go in the military for a year. Okay. There's your socialization skills. All right. So knowledge now, we're kind of getting in. If somebody wants to learn, the knowledge is out there. It's getting them to do it. Okay. Now we're getting the subjective terms. Well, they're doing this and that. Look, this is Pete Jansen saying it. With ChatGPT and all the artificial intelligence, okay? Unfortunately, teachers aren't as an influence on an education as one would think. So now, getting back to education and figuring out who's who, you're getting to standardized tests. You do need some type of metric like that accreditates that you spent 4 years and you have the education.
But your question becomes, how do we mark progress? What do we consider progress? How do we define progress? And I would offer to you that, sure, like, I don't think anybody, I certainly don't speak for Philippe or Frank, but, I don't think any of us would say that the end all be all, a measure of successful, an academic experience at the high school level is going to be strictly defined by a state standardized test. However, that is one of the few objective tools we truly have. But again, we're looking at this whole experience. But whatever the experience it is, and whatever we want to say that number is, the fact is it's a negative trend. It's been a negative trend for over a decade. It continues to go down. So it's not a COVID experience. This is something that's been going on more and more. And at the rate it goes down, the more the administrations make an effort to tell parents things are great. And I think that that's disingenuous. Okay, it's intellectually dishonest. What are we going to say about the true performance of our schools? But it starts again, one of those words with leadership. We have to define, what does success look like with respect to the educational experience our kids are going through? And again, these are our kids. This is not like, we're not fighting, what Abbott's policy is going to be about an on-ramp. These are our institutions, our taxes paid. It's like talking about FOIA. These are our records. We're not asking them for their records. These are our records. These are our kids. These are our taxes. These are our schools. And I think it's up to the board, but to make sure the administration's on board with it, it's up to the board to say, these are the numbers that this community sees as a success. But the idea that we're going to go and tickle this issue over and over and over without a tangible definition of what success looks like is just a repetition of current failing procedures.
But the last show we did, we said the same thing. This is like a reef. Somebody listened to the last show. We're talking about the same thing. We're getting nowhere. I want to get.
If you want to pay me $500,000 that they're paying Montgomery, I'll go in there and I'll spend all my time working on metrics. It's not my job to do it. It's his job. He's acknowledged it's his job. He just hasn't delivered. We can all agree. Anybody who's done any sort of work in any sort of organization or business understands that goal setting is critical for success. We have an organization right now that we're entrusting our kids to that refuses to demonstrate what their goals are for academic proficiency. It's their job. That's what we're paying them to do, is to teach our children and to manage a school district. Critical part of that is to set goals and then try your best to obtain it. And listen, if you hit them, fantastic. Let's throw a parade. If you don't hit them, then that's when you go back, maybe recalibrate your metrics, or you figure out a new plan to get them. That's basic management principles. And that's what we're asking for them to do. And it's shocking to me, should be shocking to everybody, that they're operating without setting academic proficiency goals. And it may be academic standardized tests. It may be a suite of things, that subjective and objective, but you got to define what success looks like so that your management team and your shareholders, that's us, can evaluate your performance. And so that's what we're saying. It's not our job to tell them what is, because they're the educators.
We keep hollering.
So if that's not an answer for you, I'm not going to answer. I'm not going to tell
fine.
You what.
Fine. How about this?
I'm not going to tell you if it's 75% or 83. I'm not going to tell you what that is. I don't have the info.
Okay.
I can't get the info. They don't talk to me. So it's not my job to do. It's their.
Can we invite a consultant? There's got to be a ton of these teaching board consultants. What do you call them, Joe? When you want about an advisory board or whatever, can't we invite somebody to come on and ask them? Because
there's so much talking education. Like I said, I go back to what is, and fair point that Philippe and Jeff have brought up about we don't know what their goals are. I think the district does need to come out and state their goals. And if they have, and we're wrong, come on this show and explain to us what we got wrong. But, again, I've always questioned, is it that important that kids know Shakespeare in the year 2023?
That's fine. Whatever it is, they need to define what it is that's important to know, what they're doing, because we as parents don't know what's important to them because they haven't set those goal metrics. So it could be Shakespeare's not a goal, but you got to tell us what is important to you as our educating leadership team and what success looks like under that rubric, and then we can evaluate whether we want to send our kids there or whether we need to change leadership or we need to support this leadership and give them all the money they need, parking lots for admins and everything. But until they do that, I don't think we should be spending any more money on admin parking lots or additional admins, or they're hiring a communication specialist. They just put an advertisement.
That's because of us, because of the podcast.
So I don't think they should be spending any more money on that until they tell us what academic success, because they are a school. They're not a admin building management company. They're a school. We're trusting our kids to them to educate our children. And so they should act as that's the number one priority, not number 3 priority, which seems to me what is going on right now.
Jeff, you guys come on the next show and we're going to get into this. Well, they need to come up with metrics and all this stuff. I don't want to regurgitate this all over again. How do we know we're getting forward somewhere?
Well, I think, we've got a plan for that, for direct, let's call it direct action with the school boards. But Pete, for a long time, if you remember going back to last October, well, actually November, going back to last November, we said, our battle in a lot of ways is going to be breaking this mold of accepting what comes out of Melissa Oakley's office.
Yeah.
Your pal, your lantern drinking buddy, right?
Yeah. Waiting for the FOIAs from her. Yeah.
Well, but that's a lot of it. And again, it's not, it's not an easy argument to really analyze because, we want to believe that, we pack our kids off to school in the morning to a crew of people who are going to, dedicate themselves towards, achieving the most for them. And again, whatever that looks like, it's going to be fairly eclectic. It's not going to be easy to understand because it's going to be, a lot of different facets. But the idea that we're going to accept a path that says, well, whatever is good, whatever we achieve, that's great. Well, that's what we've been looking at. But I would tell you, and I hate to, talk, what are we talking about? 20 months out now, 21 months out. I mean, does it need changes on the school board? Does it need changes on the Lake Forest Caucus? Likely, honestly. Yeah. It certainly comes down to priorities. And again, at the same time, we have to realize that, again, a core belief is that an engaged parental community is our best weapon to ensure we have the best possible schools, right? And that's what we're trying to do. We're not, we certainly will be the first ones to celebrate achievement, but we haven't, we can't just pretend like things are good or getting better.
I think you got 14,000 or whatever. What are you guys up to now?
On Facebook and stuff?
Yeah.
About 25,000.
Jesus Christ. 25. That's a big ass number. We like to call it a ban. Send a survey to them with a bunch of stuff and just say, hey, what would be important to you? Fine, it's subjective, whatever. It's better than nothing. I can't go through this again without having some piece of data that says at least this is whatever that data point that comes back. That would be a very nice objective thing to do, to spend 3 minutes up at the podium talking to the school board when that stuff comes in.
Well, Pete, as you can imagine, you've known Philippe a while, you've known Frank a while, and we've known each other. We're not, we don't view our role here as kind of like preaching and telling people what they need to think or whatever. And you may find this interesting. This morning, again, I got 2 parents who've never reached out to me before. They're like, hey, I've noticed what's going on with this. It's so important. And not totally, surprisingly, people are like, but, I've got 2 kids at the school. I really don't want my name out there, but I love this. And listen, God bless them. This is maybe the first step and all these things, but it's again, awareness in consciousness about what's really going on, as opposed to, listen, you brought up something about FOIA, and I think this is pretty revealing about kind of how insidious some of this is. I've had 2 members of the current administration right now, employed by 67 and 115, reach out to me, obviously confidentially, and I have no problem saying this on your show or to anybody else who wants to listen, to say, you understand, we've been given strict guidance to push back on all the FOIA things that we can. If people don't specifically ask for this, don't give it to them. Even if you understand what it is, if people don't refine it in such a way that then say, well,
we're not it. If you don't get the right question exactly, precisely, don't give them any information.
Here's the thing. These are intellectually dishonest positions to be taken by a public servant. So, your question quickly becomes, how do we change these cultures?
Yeah.
Well, I think I've told you before, I always joke around and say, I have 6 kids and I was a company commander in the Marine Corps. I'll out-stubborn anybody. And I've known Philippe for a long time and Frank for a long time, and I know they're like-minded, because if we're not going to do this for our own community and our own kids, even if maybe they're not your children, certainly they're the community's children. And I know, we would all do this. We all want to see the best possible schools, and not so we can have bragging rights, but because these are real people. These are real kids. The kid in a wheelchair has to be pushed outside is really a responsibility we should all be wanting to accept, not brush under it and say, well, this was a tier 2 priority, and to get this done, we've got to do these things. Hey, look, we all see the things that want to get done, they get done. We got raises through within a week after the bond passing.
What we're talking about is plain and simple propaganda. And Melissa Oakley has her propaganda, of which it worked to force out one of the co-hosts of this show. All right. Mm-hmm. So if you have people that are doing that, people that screwed you over, that you helped get $105 million to make $1,000 come out of my pocket, don't trust any of them. So you know what that tells me? I got to do it myself. So Joe, you and I, we're going to come up with our own Lake Forest podcast school education survey, highly analytical from Gallup, not. Okay. We're going to come up and we'll do our own damn survey. Okay. All right. Jeff.
Maybe our listeners can send in suggested questions for the survey.
Or
send them to Pete.
I'll take a regular parent.
Pete at lakeforestpodcast.com or Joe at lakeforestpodcast.com. Let us hear from you.
Yeah, we're tired of yelling at each other.
The more the better. Like I said, and if there's, I said this, and I hate to keep beating a dead horse. Get your dead horse graphic, Pete. But when I was an elected official, I did everything I could to get my point of view out, because often I had a contradictory point of view from many of my colleagues. So I wanted to clarify, because what I felt so passionately about what I believed in that, we didn't have, I was trying to find that one local news reporter to talk to get my side into the local news.
We are the reporter.
Yeah, no, but I think, look, so I've said this before. I sent an email to all the school board members, both at the high school and at the 67 district.
They kicked it back.
Well, I had to resend it from my personal Gmail, because apparently lakeforestpodcast.com is blocked by the school servers. But
not anymore.
Well, in any event, there's a standing invite. If you're an elected official, and again, the key word here is elected, which means you're accountable to the voters of the community. I think, and there was on the NPR Lake Forest show, one of the board members did go on there a few weeks ago. I would urge you, come on here. We'll be nice. We'll be friendly. I'll keep Pete in line, make him take his meds that morning so he doesn't jump all over you.
Screw him.
And come on the show. I just want to hear the other side to this, because maybe we're getting it wrong, as Pete.
You know what? We're not getting it wrong. They're screwed up. Jeff Brincat, Pete Jansen's words, not anybody else's. I speak for myself, or I don't even speak for Iliad, my supporter on the show. Jeff Brincat from Lake Forest, Lake Bluff Parents Care. Philippe Melin from Lake Forest, Lake Bluff Parents Care. Another spirited discussion. Hopefully next time we get together, we can nudge this peanut up the hill an inch.
Yeah. I'm happy to.
That's a crazy visual you just created.
We would love nothing more. We would love for them to do it, so.
Hey, man, we got to keep fighting.
Gentle pressure.
We need help, though. We can't do it ourselves. Guys, gals, have a great weekend. The Lake Forest Podcast is supported by viewers, listeners, and businesses just like you. Looking for the best pool supplies? Look no further than Dohany's Pool Supplies. With a history dating back to 1967, this family-owned business offers everything families need to keep their pools clean and sparkling, from chemicals to equipment. Plus, customers enjoy free shipping on all orders. Visit Dohany's Pool Supplies today at doheny.com, DOHENY.com, to learn more. Forest Bluff Real Estate Team serves Illinois, Wisconsin, Lake Forest, and Lake Bluff. John Josephitis, Laura Lee Van Fleet, and of course, Michelle Parnell. Get a free market analysis now at forestbluffrealestate.com. For the best cannabis in the world, look no further than Iliad Epic Grow. Owned by Lake Bluff's own Rich Ruzich, they are a cannabis cultivation center focusing on hard-to-find small batch products that will delight both the occasional user and ganjier. When visiting Michigan, ask for it by name. Epic Products, exceptional process. For more information, email info@iliadgrow.com. Havey Communications has been helping first responders arrive safely since 1983. It's owned by Lake Forest's own Mike Havey. Check them out at haveycommunications.com. We'd also like to say we're thankful for our Patreon supporters: Costa, Lance, Otto, RDM, John C., and Helen. Shout out to the Lake Forest Breakfast Group, Broad Stop and Captain Mike's in Kenosha, the Greentown Tavern, and the Frolic Lounge in Waukegan.